See if it comes up on YouTube, because that's kind of the important part. It says it's streaming, and it says we have an excellent connection. Good evening. It is Friday, July 8th, 2022, and coming to you live from the Lonely Tree Media Studios in Yakima, Washington. This is the Best Lamm Sports Show. I'm your host, David Lamm. With me is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
Hello, Parker. Oh, wow. A day when they were actually on it.
On it. I mean, best studio audience in the business.
I think the key is that you have to get them off their feet a little before I say what I say.
I gave them all liquor.
That'll do it.
And then they were all, they're very compliant. The sign comes on. It's like Pavlov thing. Ding, and they start clapping.
That will rile them up.
Plus, they're going to be rowdy. We might get applause when we don't want it. I don't know. We're on YouTube right now. I mean, if you're watching, you know that. We're on Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show, and you can send us an email to lammsports@gmail.com. Please check out our webpage, which is literally just lammsports.com. You can find links to the past shows and the current trivia question, as always, is on the website, if I've updated it. There's a little caveat there, but I mean... usually,
if it's good.
Usually, plus I gotta get some new pictures on there. I'm gonna revamp the website, so if you haven't been there in a while, maybe wait a couple weeks because I'm gonna update the whole dang thing. So,
are you learning like HTML? You're gonna learn how to code the website,
right? See, I'm gonna be all over this, and if I just had another person, if I had a producer or a technical guy, we'd be in business.
I specifically remember, not you and Mom, but I specifically remember parents in the year like 2003 going, "You don't need to know that crap. That's a waste of time. Professional gaming, what is that?" Right. And now those are all of the good ways to make money.
all of the good ways.
All of the good ways.
Oh my
IT is the cushiest job ever. You sit in a room and you type.
But it's lonely, I think.
I mean,
it's
our IT guy at the store where I work is awesome, and he's super funny, and he is always like sending out like chats and things like that. But he has someone who works in the room with him. Like there's two of them, so. But I don't know. Okay. I think they're fine. I mean, I guess you could if you're like the lone IT guy.
But I get. It's gonna sound awful, but I guess IT guys, by definition, kind of prefer to be. Lone wolves,
locked in,
lone rangers,
locked into a computer. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's what's it called? Like the starting pay for like a basic IT tech is like 70-80 grand in Oregon, and that's insane. So
it's for sure. That's more than I make on a Friday. So what's this show doesn't produce a whole lot of money yet. But I mean, we were working on it, and you know what? We've been polishing it. By the way, this is the 90th episode.
90th episode,
right? Special 90th episode. It's not special. It's just a regular episode.
On episode 100, I'll get on camera.
There we go. Perfect. There'll be two of us. You can see both of us.
We'll do like streamers. And we'll just pop them off in the background.
For just like one episode.
For just one episode. Yeah. I'm back doing my own stuff.
So here's the thing. We got Formula One at Silverstone. We had the LIV Golf Tour in Portland, right? We've got the Blazers and Seahawks maybe not for sale, or maybe for sale. It's hard to say. The USFL Championship, right? I mean, does anyone care about the USFL Championship? The MLB, WNBA, MLS, if we have time. We got a couple other things we want to talk about. Baker Mayfield's in here. I mean, it's big news in the NFL, big breaking news. More importantly, we're going to talk about NCAA football realignment. That is like the thing that has shook the West Coast at this moment. So we're going to talk about that. We haven't talked about it yet, but we're going to talk about it. So, as always, the first segment of the show is brought to you by The Range in Yakima. The Range is Central Washington's premier indoor shooting destination. If you haven't checked them out, go to therangellc.com. You'll find all of the training, membership, and VIP information and opportunities there. Check out their calendar under the events tab. You can find the complete schedule for the month. You can enroll for most of the events and training online with a few simple clicks. Open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 7, Sunday 11 to 5. Go see our friends at The Range, 1701 Garrettson Lane in Yakima. The phone number, 509-571-1449. Make sure you mention the Best Lamb Sports Show. The Range, educate, equip, and empower. So, what the hell is going on? USC and UCLA announced last week that they would be leaving the Pac-12 to become members of the Big Ten. It leads to about 1 billion questions that I have.
Sure.
Number one, first and foremost, what happens to the rest of the Pac-12? That's the biggest question, and nobody knows the answer to that yet because I assume they're trying to figure that out. But
yeah,
in your opinion, what's the move going forward for the rest of those schools?
Well, I think that the teams that can leave and join a bigger conference will. I think that Oregon, Washington, Utah, Stanford, maybe Arizona State, or maybe Arizona and Arizona State. I think that those schools will all clear out and either go to the Big 12 or the Big 10. And I think what's left will try and merge as much as they can with your Mountain West. The Mountain West and the Pac-12 will merge together and become, a 14-team conference that features San Diego State and Boise State and Oregon State and Washington, all the states, all the state schools.
So here's a question for you. Clearly, Oregon and Washington and maybe Utah, right, are your prime schools in terms of football in the Pac-12 that are left. It clearly USC and UCLA didn't want those teams with them, or they would have made some sort of contact and said, "Hey, we're all thinking about leaving. Let's go."
Well, and maybe they did.
Maybe they did.
That's information we don't have. We have to assume that they were hush hush and secretly walked out the back door.
Here's what I assume. I assume that USC and UCLA don't want to share recruits anymore, and they're going to say, "Oh, not only can you play on the West Coast, you get to be seen in the Midwest." So if you're from the Midwest and you play, offensive tackle, and you were thinking about going to Michigan, well, now you can go to USC and still play Ohio State and still play Wisconsin and still be seen by your people, right? I assume that they don't want to fight with Oregon and Washington for recruits on the West Coast anymore. It is literally, hey, we've got something that Oregon can't offer that right now.
I'm not sure that it mattered because when they were absolutely dog water and couldn't do anything in the league, they were still pulling in top 15 recruiting classes. There's so much talent around there. They're going to get them. They were going to get them regardless of where they stayed or went. I mean, yeah, sure. USC snags up an extra 2 top 50 recruits a year, maybe, and maybe those guys sit and then transfer somewhere else. I don't see them having the success they think they're going to have on all fronts. I don't think it's going to help them that much recruiting because now I'm going to go to the Big Ten, right? Do I want to go play for UCLA or do I want to go play for Penn State?
Right.
Like before you were deciding between the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and once you decide on the Pac-12, then you decide on your school. Well, now you're deciding on the Big Ten, and within that, there are more attractive options. Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State are all more attractive options in terms of exposure than USC. USC is going to lose recruits because of the division they play in now, I think.
I would argue Penn State might not be in that same group with Ohio State and Michigan, but yeah, I get your point.
It's a classic school. They get a lot of big airtime, I think, is what I was getting at. And USC is going to get some good airtime by extension. If Notre Dame comes there, I'm especially curious to see what goes down. But
I don't think Notre Dame's going there.
I hope they're not so stupid that they wouldn't see where all of this is going and think, because they need to join. They need to. They've already joined for pretty much everything else. So, but they joined the ACC for all that stuff.
Well, they needed to join 40 years ago, but they haven't. True. So they're clearly
and it hasn't been a problem.
It hasn't been a problem for them
until some big super moves in the last 2 years start raising questions about who the hell are you going to schedule?
So you can't pull in one. Notre Dame is in a situation where they're going to make things odd. Who goes with them? You have to have another team to balance it out.
That's a difference. I mean, you pick somebody. Pick somebody and send them an invite.
You're not going to take Miami of Ohio with Notre Dame. That's what I'm getting at. You need a team that is of the same caliber.
That's not what I mean by somebody.
But who would you pick?
Pick a somebody. And
okay.
Send them, it doesn't matter. I'm asking. Utah. So they don't go with Colorado everywhere. Utah.
Okay.
Notre Dame, Utah. Oh, and now USC has someone to play out on the West Coast. Stanford. Take Stanford and Notre Dame. So you keep them both in the thing together. They keep playing each other every year, and now there's an extra matchup for your West Coast teams. They don't have to travel as far.
Would they keep playing each other every year? Because I feel like your West is overloaded now in the Big Ten. If you're going to put UCLA and USC, and so Stanford would stay in the West and Notre Dame would go in the East.
They do it now, and they don't have to.
I know they do.
They'll do it then when they don't have to.
When you add 8 mandatory conference games or 9, that relationship might go out the window.
Except that'll stay. I mean, it's not affected anybody else.
I hear what you're saying, but the SEC doesn't play everybody in the other division, even though some of those were traditional rivalries too.
Tennessee
and
Alabama play every year.
They do,
every
but Alabama doesn't play everybody in the SEC East.
They don't. That's not everyone in the SEC East is their rival.
They used to. What I'm getting at is when it was smaller, they used to. They used to play almost everybody, or at least it rotated. Now they play, and since they play Tennessee every year, that is one team in the East that is automatic, which means the other teams have to rotate. What I'm getting at is the larger your conference
it's too big, yeah.
The larger your conference is, the less you're going to play those other teams.
Some people. Gotcha. It's sure, we all get it. I know where all this is going. It's eventually all going to go to there's 20 teams in each of these conferences, and then they split into 2 10-team divisions where you play an 8 or 9 game schedule in your division. And it's pretty much just like having different conferences. It doesn't. I mean, that's why I think that it's kind of an overreaction. I think this is going to change everything too much. It's all going to kind of look the same. I think the Big Ten is going to look to add schools from the West Coast, so that way USC doesn't get stuck with all the traveling all the time. They can schedule West Coast time games that don't affect their time slots out there. It'll make it a lot easier.
If you were vindictive, I'm not saying you are, but if you were vindictive and you were the rest of the Pac-12, and they left you hanging.
Yeah.
You could all just agree to not play them. We're not showing up for that game. USC's not getting any TV revenue. You're not getting anything because we're not going to go play you. And so it's all a forfeit every time. You guys can be the conference champions. That's fine. But the rest of us are going to play football against each other. You don't want to be here anymore, so leave.
It hurts as much as it hurts them as much as it
I don't know that
else.
It does, because USC would be losing 9 football games, and somebody like Oregon would be losing 1.
You're not wrong. What you need is all the other 12 teams to get together and rewrite their schedule for next season.
Don't have to.
Yes. To exclude them. You don't want to forfeit games. You want to exclude them. USC and UCLA will not be playing football in the Pac-12 this year. They can play whoever the hell they want, but their games against Pac-12 conference opponents, they're not going to exist. Not forfeited, just don't exist. Instead, our 12 teams remaining, or our 10 teams remaining, will play a traditional schedule. And we'll all play each other, and we'll have a conference winner, and it'll be glorious.
So
just like the old times. And USC and UCLA can go 2 years if they wait 2 years. I think they'll be there next year, but 2 years without playing football.
So in my opinion, what's gonna happen is Arizona State, Colorado, maybe Utah if they don't get invited to go somewhere else. I don't know about Stanford and Cal. I haven't figured that out yet. But those teams could join the Big 12 with the rest of the Big 12 teams.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be that big a stretch for travel purposes. Traveling to
Oregon
Texas from Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a big
That's
deal.
not too bad.
No. But Oregon and Washington State, Oregon State, they're stuck up here in the Northwest where any other conference that might take them other than the Mountain West is going to be a pain in the ass. I still don't know how logistically USC and UCLA are going to make trips to Rutgers and Maryland on a regular basis. That's all the way across the country. That's ridiculous.
With charter flights.
Well, they're going to get paid money from TV, right?
Sure. Yeah, and charter flights.
Yeah.
They're going to leave on Tuesday.
Right.
On a charter flight. They're going to have 2 days to get over their jet lag.
I get it.
If there's any. And they'll be fine. It's I feel like the travel aspect of it is a little less of a problem as the time slots for competition.
I'm just talking about the financial aspect of traveling to Maryland is way bigger than UCLA traveling to Oregon.
You're not wrong at all. That's why they took 2 schools that don't seem to have too much of a problem with their budgets. Also, if they hadn't have thought that through, they wouldn't, or if they hadn't have thought about that, they wouldn't have gone. I think the one thing they're not thinking through is that they're, USC playing against Rutgers, assuming they're in that division and play them. Let's just say maybe they play them once every 6 years or whatever it is.
Maybe.
That game's going to be either super early for the West Coasters, so it's either going to be like a noon kickoff there, 9 a.m. there, or it's going to be a late game out there, which wouldn't be too bad for USC fans. I mean, they'd be able to watch it, but it's going to be right at the same time as other more important games.
Which is also interesting because the Big Ten traditionally has noon kickoffs.
Noon kickoff. So
yeah.
Are LA fans happy
at 10 a.m.
watching football at 9-10 a.m. every Saturday? I don't think so.
10 a.m. is pretty early to get up and watch a football game.
I hate it. I want to move back. I want to move back to the West Coast, and I want to watch, or the East Coast, and watch Pac-12 games that were late because it's nice. I like being up later and watching them. I don't like having to do it early. But LA, I think that's the one thing that they're not taking into account is what their fans are going to think about it necessarily.
Here's my other question.
Yeah.
If we load up these conferences, SEC and Big Ten, and the ACC and these others don't make a move, the college football playoff is going to be ridiculously stupid. You're not going to have a fair and equitable chance to get in from any of the other conferences. Not that you did before, but it is going to be exclusive to those two conferences.
I don't think it'll be exclusive. I just think that,
how are you going to keep out Ohio State if USC goes unbeaten on their side and Ohio State has one loss and Michigan has one loss, or what? How are you going to keep those three teams out of the playoff? It's ridiculous to think that you're not going to have 16 teams in the Big 12 or Big 10 and 16 in the SEC and not have two teams from each conference playing in the college football playoff. Since you didn't expand it, that's the four best teams in the country. The ACC is going to be ass out unless Clemson beats somebody good and is awesome, or Florida State or whoever.
Right.
They're going to be ass out. So is the Pac-12. They're going to be out unless they've got a really tough non-conference schedule and they win all their games.
I hear what you're saying, and that's no different than now. Like it's
a little different.
It's the tiniest bit. The difference is can you get a non-conference game? Oregon currently has Michigan State and Ohio State scheduled in the non-conference post-merger of USC UCLA. So there's plenty of opportunities, and we'll see if they back out of those. They very well could. And we've got Georgia this year, and we've got Baylor upcoming. I know that's Big 12, but we haven't had trouble getting other conferences, despite all uncertainty, to secure non-conference matchups. I don't think that's going to be an issue in the future. I think that the thing is what it always was. Win your non-conference games, take care of business in conference. If you do those things, the expansion is coming because the Big Ten and the SEC won't be happy that they have these super conferences and are only putting 4 teams in. They're going to expand it, which will give the opportunity to everyone.
You would hope so, but
not as great opportunity, but an opportunity as much as, I mean, they're still going to give them more credit than they give anybody else ever like they do now. They'll do it then. It's all going to be the same.
Well, the problem I have is that if none of these, what I'm seeing is 2 8-team conferences or 18 divisions in your 16-team conference, right?
Right.
So you're going to play all 7 in your division. I'm hoping. Otherwise, you're going to have a tie in your division. You could have a tie in your division for the championship. How are you going to break that tie and determine who goes to the championship game? But you've got to play all the teams in your division to figure out a champion. That's 7.
Sure.
If you're like the SEC and they only play 8 conference games, that's 1 game of those other 8 teams you're going to play a year. And Tennessee's locked into Alabama, which means they'll never play Georgia, South Carolina, Florida. They'll never play them again.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying.
Right. And then
that's no different than now.
A little. They're playing. They're playing those teams now.
It condenses the timeline for it. They'll play them then, just longer out.
No, they can't. Out. They can't. Listen, Alabama's going to have 7 other teams in their division. That's 7 games. They're going to play 1 Eastern team. That's Tennessee. The other 4 are non-conference in the SEC. They don't play 9. They play 8. There will never be a chance that Georgia and Alabama will play.
Maybe the rivalry drops off.
Well, that's my whole point is that if you're never going to play Georgia, we don't know that you're not the best team. How do we even if you throw 30 teams in a conference, they can't play each other.
I said this 2 seconds or like 10 seconds ago, where I said that they're going to make a big conference, split into 2 parts, and have different conference
then what's the
champions
point?
That play again. But
it's the same as what we have now.
It's the money.
I get it.
Coming together for the same teams. That's all it is.
It's the same. You could do the same thing now. Why didn't they just acquire the Pac-12 and have that be the Big 10 West?
In terms of the ability to get into the playoffs, all that matters is that you win the games that are put in front of you.
Understood.
And that's all you can really do.
Understood.
Only once has that really hosed anybody. Twice. Utah once and UCF once. That's it. Every other time, if you've won out, you've been fine.
Understood. Understood. But if you've won out, you were from a major conference. You weren't from the now defunct Pac-12. That's not going to happen. Oregon wins out in 2024 and nothing changes and they move it. Maybe the Mountain West and them merge. Oregon's not making. Doesn't matter if they're unbeaten. They're not making.
If you believe that's going to happen,
no,
that's the first problem.
I didn't say that.
Oregon,
but I'm saying what if?
Oregon will be out of this conference and somewhere else if that's the move this conference is going to make.
You would hope so, because I don't know where they can go. I'm telling you, they're not going to end up in the Big Ten.
Have a hard time getting an invite to the Big 12. They will not have a hard time.
No, not to the Big 12. You're right.
Yeah.
But do you want to be in the Big?
If Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Utah all join the Big 12, just those 4 teams, then 10 of last year's top 25 finishers would have been in the Big 12.
Okay.
It is much bigger, more powerful than it seems like it is, but not that many of the top 10.
Well, Oklahoma and Texas are leaving, so there's that.
Right. I'm just talking about that. I can only speak to what was presented.
Well, what I'm talking about is when all this happens. So in 2 years.
So eight of the top 10 finishers from last year. That's still not bad. That's not bad. That's still a very respectable thing. You're still competing for titles. It will be fine. Yeah. I think people are really worried about it. And we've got 2 years left of playing USC and UCLA. Maybe. 2 years for them to realize this is a mistake. I think they're going to leave next year.
Yeah.
But let's just assume it's 2 years like they say. 2 years of that happening. I'm not too stressed about it. If Lincoln Riley is a bum and that team tanks, the Big Ten might rethink that decision. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Or maybe they might think we have to add on to them because they're not bringing enough heat to the conference, because they don't want to bring in winners. They don't want to bring in people who are going to compete with Ohio State and Michigan. They want to bring in people for Ohio State and Michigan to beat, that look good on paper, that make money.
You would think that's true.
Yeah, that's why they took those two and not Oregon and Stanford, the 2 teams that have won the conference the most times in the past 10 years. Yeah, they took those 2 bums on there because they wanted that market.
So,
the money. Yeah.
Here's another question for you. What happens to the Rose Bowl? Just in general,
the Rose Bowl of the Big Ten, Pac-12.
No, it's going to be gone.
It'll change. It'll just become something different.
Yeah, come on, man.
Make it a designated playoff bowl game.
I already don't like the fact that it's been a playoff bowl game and not an actual bowl game. It should have stayed as a bowl game. You could create another bowl game to have a playoff game. You didn't need to make the Rose Bowl the bowl game. That was wrong because the playoff should have been separate.
I don't think it's wrong. I think that there's no reason to hold on to anything. Whatever you loved, whatever I loved, it's going to be gone. And in the way we know it, that doesn't mean the next thing is going to be bad. So we can appreciate the things we had while looking forward to what might be different. And if they make the Rose Bowl, as long as they play a game there every year, I really don't mind that much. There'll be another, whatever conference Oregon ends up in, they'll probably be part of it in some way or shape or form, because I don't think the Rose Bowl will become Big Ten SEC. It'll more become Big Ten, Big 12 than anything.
The only reason it's been in the Pac-12 Big Ten is because UCLA, who plays in the Rose Bowl, they were in the Pac-12. Right. If they're going to be in the Big Ten, then you've got Big Ten then. I guess I could play in the Rose Bowl.
Well, then maybe it stays Big Ten, Pac-12, and the Big Ten just beats up
won't be a Pac-12,
Oregon State or Washington State every year.
A Pac-12 is not going to exist in another year and a half. It's not going to exist.
Let's rephrase that. The Pac-12 will exist. It won't be called what it's called.
I don't think it'll be the Pac-12. Well, that's what I'm getting at, is that it won't be there is no Pac-12 without UCLA and USC. It is you've effectively ended the Pac-12, and you're going to call it some other conference. That's fine, but
it's funny. I remember everyone saying that before when we added Utah and Colorado. They're like, "Oh, it's the beginning of the end." It was like,
that wasn't
It didn't change that much, and I don't think this is going to change a terrible amount this way either.
Right. Well,
I mean, it's going to change everything, but it's not going to change it in a way that's bad necessarily.
I don't like any of it, by the way, but that's okay. I think it's going to this, and I've told you this before. It's going to eventually ruin college football as we know it. It's got to completely break down and change everything that happens. It has to completely break down and change, and all you're going to have is minor league professional football, and that's fine if that's what you want.
Yeah,
that's fine, but I don't want that. I don't want to watch minor league. I've seen it. The USFL's out there. Nobody watches it. I don't care. I've seen it.
It's the nature of the beast when you refuse to make adequate changes in your structure, not just having to do with paying athletes, but in the way you treat conferences and the way you give preferential treatment. You are eventually going to get a nice little revolt, and it's going to break down your structure for you.
This has nothing to do.
You gotta adjust.
This has nothing to do with anything but greed. It's about money. It's about we can make more TV money if we go to the Big Ten, and that's all it boils down to. Okay.
Absolutely.
I think this is all at the expense of number one, tradition, which you don't like. I get it. But number two,
I mean, I don't know, it's not that I don't like tradition. I just don't. I don't need tradition.
Number two,
Yeah.
lesser sports are going to suffer and they're going to fall by the wayside because everything's going to be poured into football and football travel and football expenses, and it is not going to make enough money to cover women's lacrosse. It's not going to. They're going to fall. You watch, this is going to happen because Stanford already had to do it during the pandemic. They dropped like 8 sports. This is going to happen on these schools that now have to travel a whole bunch. Every time they go anywhere, it's going to be a shit ton of travel money. And I don't think they're going to make enough because they're not. You think USC this year is going to win or if they were in the Big Ten this year, would they win it? No. Next year? Probably not. I don't think they're ready to jump into playing Ohio State and Michigan and Wisconsin in a general every year basis and being good because they can't even win the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they're ready for any of that. So if they're not going to be good enough, what happens then when your teams aren't good, right? And you don't get what you think you were going to get, what's going to happen is something's going to get cut because they won't cut football.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
feel go find out if Missouri still has a women's soccer team because they've been absolutely terrible in the SEC since they joined it.
But the SEC gives them a lot more money. A lot more money.
Who's to say that?
Oh, I'm saying that the Big Ten.
Well, Big Ten won't give USC and UCLA the same amount of money,
and they might. They might just do that.
I think they will. I mean, it's revenue shared, right? Outside of donations, it's all shared through your athletic department. You don't get to take your entire budget and allocate it here. It's relative equal amounts relative to the size of the people and like the amount of dollars per athlete and things like that, other than donations to specific charities and things or to specific things. And those are external events. You can't really change that anyways. That's how they're existing now. That's how women's lacrosse is existing now. It's not because they're making money now. It's not because they're getting a ton of, extra stuff. It's because the money that's coming in is split equally.
Right. But my
amongst
point,
all of them, and it will continue to be split equally in the next division.
I agree with you, except now you've just raised the amount of money it takes for USC lacrosse, women's lacrosse, to play Maryland. It was okay when they were playing Stanford. It's just a bus ride up the frickin' coast. But to play Maryland is a whole different thing. You've just doubled or tripled every travel expense that you have. Are you receiving 3 times as much TV money to cover that, is my point. That's my guess. That's what I'm saying. You've just made it so hard, and you've increased the overhead so much by every road game being so far away for those smaller programs. They're not going to survive that. I just that's how I feel.
I just don't. I think you're overestimating the cost of those things. I mean, the people don't have to be at school anymore. Right, football players don't really go to class that much anymore because you can do it all from the road. You take tutors on the road, so you don't need to be there. All right, so you got a big road trip. You're the Stanford women's lacrosse team, and or the USC women's lacrosse team. You got a big road trip across the Northeast. You're gonna fly out, and then you're gonna bus from place to place to place, just like you might do if you flew from USC to Wazoo, and then bus to Washington, and then down to Oregon and Oregon State.
You can do that to the Pac-12. You can't do that from Rutgers to Wisconsin.
But you could do it from Rutgers to Penn State.
Maybe, yeah, that's close.
And then you
together.
could do it from Penn State to Michigan.
I hear
you.
State.
You can get over there. It's not. Again, I think you're overestimating how big of the impact that will be. It'll all be covered.
I hear you, but you don't think that a plane ticket for one of those players or the charter flight price from USC to Washington
and USC
to Seattle,
Rutgers,
right, from USC to Maryland is going to be 2 or 3 times as much? It absolutely is.
I don't know. USC is a private school.
With the price of fuel?
They have their own planes.
Okay, UCLA then.
UCLA is a little different. UCLA is a state school. That's actually one thing I'm not sure how they managed to do. Is how they were managing to leave a sport with like being a state school in California and things like that. I'm not sure if the state of California had any hand in that because I don't know. That was kind of a weird one. But I'm sure it costs more. But I don't think I just think you're nitpicking at the $100, the $150, the $200 when you're talking about maybe a bump up of a couple million by going to a new conference.
Okay.
I think it's digging in at it's trying to dig in at the noble cause, which is what about these poor other sports? Your bigger concern should be Oregon State women's lacrosse.
Okay.
They're going to go away because Oregon State's not going to get invited anywhere. Maybe in baseball they will. Maybe people pick and choose the sports. Maybe wrestling, but they're not going to get invited anywhere. And so they're not going to have any TV dollars, which means they're not going to have anything. They're not going to improve. That's who you should be worried about. USC and UCLA, they'll be fine in terms of money. Oregon State, oof, that's a little different story. And we have a contract, and the Pac-12 has a TV contract right now, so that'll last a little while. But I would expect that deal to be dead, and they won't renew it.
Well, they're trying to make a new one right now, and I don't know how they're going to do that when
they're
you know
that
USC and UCLA aren't going to be there.
Yeah,
so
and this is all Larry Scott. This is all Larry Scott's fault. Larry Scott being unwilling to elevate this conference doomed this conference a long time ago. It made teams start thinking about expansion. It made teams, people start thinking about leaving and things like that. It just was bad. Well, he was awful for this conference, and I feel perfectly comfortable putting all of this crap right on his head.
Well, that was half of our show. And I knew it would be.
We knew we'd have a lot to say.
There's still more to follow because all these dominoes have to fall, and the first one is probably Notre Dame.
Yeah,
that has to do something. But what if they don't? I mean, it doesn't. We'll answer that later. But I mean, what happens if they just decide we're going to remain independent? They still can. They have enough of their own self-reliance. They're independent, really, in terms of they got their own TV contract. They play a lot of these teams already. I don't know. I feel like they're not going to be forced into anything.
It'll just depend if the Big Ten and the SEC want to keep scheduling them.
All it's going to matter is, do they have a path to get to the college football? If you keep allowing them a path into the college football playoff, they will stay independent.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you force them and say, hey, you have to be in this conference, you got to win a conference, or you got to be blah, 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 they would move right now. But since you allow them to keep getting in when they don't deserve to, and we've seen what happens every time they get in. Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Sure.
Let's talk about Formula One.
Okay.
So, in his 150th career Formula One race, Carlos Sainz won his first ever pole at Silverstone, England on Saturday. Then he went out and got his first race victory at the British Grand Prix on Sunday. The start of the race saw 7 cars involved in 2 separate accidents down the main straight that left Zhou Guanyu, Alex Albon, and George Russell out of the race. Zhou's Alfa Romeo slid upside down off the track and through the gravel at turn 1 before flipping over the tire barrier, being caught by the safety fencing. Zhou would be okay, but the crash was dramatic and led to a 45-minute stoppage under a red flag.
Yeah.
The Ferrari team did everything they could in their power to have Charles Leclerc win this race, by the way,
right,
to include moving Carlos Sainz out of the way. But he was just the better driver. He just had the better car maybe that day. I don't know. And he managed to finish first. He was just faster. He for some reason, that car that day was the best car. Sergio Perez finished second after pitting to repair front wing damage on lap 6, and he fell to the back of the pack and moved his way all the way back up to second. Lewis Hamilton eventually made his way to third for his 13th podium finish at Silverstone. That's an F1 record for podium finishes at one event. Season points leader Max Verstappen was complaining all race long about his Red Bull's poor handling, finished 7th, but the poor handling was due to the fact that he had a chunk of wing up under his car the whole time. And I'm wondering how come they couldn't figure that out, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd think that with all the technology, they'd have been able to say, oh, yeah, there's a big old hunk of thing. You could just pop it up, drag it out, away you go.
There's no sensor that indicates that.
I know. But there's a sensor that indicates everything else.
Well, they had sensors indicating that they were losing losing time and losing drag, and they didn't know why.
Yeah, you're losing speed, but we don't feel like it's a big deal. Just keep going.
Well, they clearly did.
I mean, we can't do anything. We can't do anything about it.
Well, but it was an oversight in the best way possible. Like you're just like, well, we can't figure it out. Like, they threw new tires on it. That must be the problem.
And he got angry, and he was so angry the whole race long. And then I think at the end when there's literally a picture.
Kind of accepted
there's a picture of him with the chunk of debris.
Yeah, he's smiling.
You're like, oh yeah, well.
He kind of accepted it. I think like 12 or 13 laps before the end, and was whatever.
But it led to some great racing, by the way, because Verstappen and Mick Schumacher were battling for 7th and 8th at the very end for like the last 3 or 4 laps. That was fun to watch. And then you had Hamilton, Alonso, Perez, and I'm missing one. Oh, Leclerc, all battling for 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And they were 4 wide at one point coming around one of those corners near the end of the race. That was
kind of wild.
Some of the best racing we've seen in terms of guys passing guys and just back and forth.
It might have been my favorite race that I've watched.
Yeah.
like of all of them. Like, and it definitely had its excitement and all that
Yeah.
stuff like that, but just good quality racing. And it's funny that you talked about Sainz, like you said, he was just faster. His lap times at the Canadian Grand Prix over the last like 20 laps
Yeah.
were faster than Verstappen. It's just those corners that you have to go around,
Yeah.
and the way you have to go around them, you never get a chance to pass.
Right.
Not unless you're so close. More or less, the other person has to make a mistake.
Right. Yeah.
And Max Verstappen doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
He doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
He really doesn't. It usually takes a piece of wedged carbon fiber under his car to slow him down a little bit. And even then, you're only going to get him to 7th.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. It was a big old chunk, and it was definitely dragging and slowing him down. Verstappen still leads the overall drivers' points for the season. He's got 181 points, and Sergio Perez, his teammate, is at 147. And then comes the Ferrari team. Leclerc at 138, Sainz at 127, and then the Mercedes team. Russell at 111 and Hamilton at 93. Those 6 guys, and I would dare say he's not out at this point, but unless he wins a race soon,
he's about out.
He's about out because we're 10 races in. I mean, we're
Yeah.
about halfway. So those guys, if you're one of those 6 guys, you still have a chance. If you're anybody else, not so much. Further on down. But it was fun to watch guys score points who hadn't scored points and.
Schumacher.
Schumacher getting points. I mean, that was his first ever points, and that was just a big deal. I mean, it was fun to watch that. The crash was. Here's my biggest problem with the crashes, and I know why they do it, but the crash happened, and for 15 minutes, maybe 20, you couldn't see a replay.
Yeah,
because they didn't know how he was.
Which was super annoying.
And I get the reason why they did it. I understand we don't want to show. Sounds terrible. We don't show a dead guy in a car. Right. I get that. I understand that. But it just was, this accident has just happened, and it's probably the most, we've completed one turn? Literally, that was the first corner. And I want to see what happened, because I saw a guy sliding across the camera on his upside down, right? And that was all I saw. And it was like, okay, what happened just now? But you couldn't see it for 15, 20 minutes because they didn't know how he was, and then they waited to confirm that he was okay before they even showed a replay. And then when they showed the replays, you're like, oh, wow, this was bigger than you thought it was. And it was 2 separate collisions, and you didn't realize that. And some of those guys just became pinball out there. They just, Alex Albon, for example. He had nowhere to go. There was nothing he could do, but he got hit from 3 sides. So it was that crash combined with the good racing at the end, even though it wasn't for first place, made this more exciting than any of the others I've seen this year.
Yeah. What's it called? I thought it was really interesting to watch, everyone competing. We almost got Lewis Hamilton and Leclerc almost crashed. They touched tires at one point, and both walked away, and it was like, oh geez, that was hairy. And then Max put Schumacher off the road twice. Off the road. He made him make that decision, which is what he's known for, forcing you to either hit me or stop.
Oh yeah, right.
Or go off
or
the
go
road.
wide.
Or those are your choices.
Yep.
And he forced him to do that a bunch of times. And Schumacher most drivers err on the side of caution.
Well, I think
just stop.
I think the reason that Schumacher couldn't pass him, to be honest with you, is because he wasn't willing to take the chance and go for it and get bumped out and not get points. He was already in point position, and there was no way he was going to let that happen.
He was being cautious the whole time.
Absolutely.
He was definitely faster than Max.
I think he could have taken a chance and gotten around him at some point.
Max is a smarter driver.
Right, absolutely.
And a little more aggressive, and those are both perfectly fine qualities. And between those two things, he was able to keep him in an uncomfortable spot where he wasn't going to make an extra push. So that was really fun to watch.
Yeah, he wasn't willing to let go of the position that he had.
Right.
So that was.
But
a
you
big
saw
deal.
that, that was a whole thing last year. People were like, "Oh, he forced him out. He forced him out. He forced him out." Everyone does it. Every single race.
Yeah.
I watched Leclerc force out Sainz. I watched Perez force out Leclerc. I watched Hamilton force out Leclerc. Leclerc got hosed a lot in this one, but
they do it. And you watched.
It's a common practice.
And you watched on the restart. You watched Sainz do it to Verstappen, because Verstappen had the lead right off the bat. He had a much better start on the soft tires.
He put him in a bad spot.
Right, but then the second restart, they're both on mediums. And then you watch Sainz go way right and push him out to the right, and he didn't have an angle for the corner. So
yeah.
I mean,
the racing line's a thing people are like really, really big on. Like, so after the race, Lewis Hamilton made a comment about going through Cop's Corner without any issues. He said him and Leclerc both went through Cop's Corner just fine.
Yeah, I mean.
And then, of course, Max Verstappen said in response, he says it's positive to know that at 37 years old, you can still learn how to race on the line. And in my head, I just think, how many times do either of these dudes deviate from the line to play defense?
And
it's 1,000 times a race.
And part of me says, Lewis Hamilton, you're not racing for the championship right now, so it really doesn't matter, right? So that's why there wasn't as big a deal around that corner.
It was a baited it was kind of a baited question. The reporter asked him about, like, last year at Cops you had an accident with Verstappen, this year you and Leclerc didn't seem to have any problems, and he just kind of repeated that statement.
Right.
And that's what took hold, was like, Lewis Hamilton takes subtle shot at Max Verstappen.
which is fantastic. That's what we want to hear. That's the crap that we like.
I really believe that the two of them get along or understand the quote rivalry. They're better than anybody else, and they're like, it is what it is, man.
They're both championship quality drivers, and they both take a lot of pride in what they do, and they're going to exchange shots at each other when that kind of crap happens. You're going to expect that, and it's happened in the NBA. It happens, everywhere when the guys are that good. You know what I mean? And there's any kind of an issue, but it's minimal. I mean, it happens in the heat of the moment, and then it's gone. I think they let it go, and they go with the thing. Because if you have a memory for that stuff, you can't effectively race the race you're racing. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you don't hear Verstappen or Hamilton or anybody else just like kind of like unprovoked talking trash about people. No. It's usually post race, or something like that when it comes up, or it's on Drive to Survive, which is fun. I love Drive to Survive, but it is fake news.
Oh, I know.
they show the qualifying sessions like they're actually racing.
I know.
I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah, you didn't show this because I'm like, because a lot of the footage that they show, and I'm like, there's no one around him. There's nobody near him. That clearly isn't the race.
I am happy that they have something like that to help people get into the sport and learn more about it. But once you do get in it, once you do learn more about it, you go, what the hell am I watching?
I like the inside information and the feelings, and they're sharing the things and the actual footage of the team principals. It's fun to watch Gunther Steiner get upset. You know what I mean? It just is. But
how long does he keep his job?
I don't know.
This is supposed to be their year, right? They were supposed to charge back.
He just got 4 points from Mick Schumacher.
Or is it because of the whole Mazepin thing? We're all like, all right, he gets another year.
Kevin Magnussen is in 12th, by the way, in the point standings. He's not like charging up there and being, he's not going to race for a championship. But I mean, they're making more points, I think, this year than they did last year. I don't know if that's true, but it feels like it. So last year they were just bad. So I don't know. Anyway, let's. They're in. Let me go back. They're in Austria this weekend, by the way. And if you want to watch it, practice 2 I think is tomorrow. Practice 2? Wait, today's Friday, right?
Today is Friday. Yeah.
So practice 2 is today.
Practice 1 and qualifying.
For qualifying for the sprint race.
Yeah, tomorrow's practice 2 and sprint qualifying.
And the sprint race, which is going to lead to the final qualifying for the race on Sunday. Yeah. So
no. Yes. Sprint qualifying is qualifying.
That's the race start for Sunday?
Yeah.
They start the same order in the sprint qualifying?
Yeah, they did qualifying this afternoon.
I thought that your order in the sprint qualifying.
They're calling it sprint qualifying on Saturday after Saturday morning, and then they'll do race Sunday. There's not another qualifying session after sprint.
No, what I thought was that the sprint race determined your starting position for the race. That was the whole point of the sprint race. Right, that's what I'm saying. Sprint race is a qualification for Sunday.
Oh, I thought you were saying that they do the sprint race and then there's another qualifying session.
You qualify for the sprint race, and the sprint race is qualification for Sunday.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Every once in a while.
By the way, Haas last year scored exactly 0 points.
See? And they've got 20 this year.
I typed in Haas points standings 2021, and it brought up by race, and it's like Bahrain 28th March 0, Emilia 18th April 0, Portugal 02 May 0.
They were bad.
I'm like, you could have just put 0,
right? But they were so bad. Yeah, well, you read through all 20 something of them and go, 0. I got it.
I was like, did I miss one? Does one of these have 1? Is that why they gave me all of them? Because if they're all 0, you just put it there. But I don't know. It's kind of wild.
Hercules comes to mind. I know, you know, I get it.
I know. I know. You know.
All right. Let's talk about golf for a little bit. The Live Tour, LIV Tour. I don't know how they actually pronounce it. Have you ever heard anybody say it?
They call it the Live Tour.
Okay, so Live Tour. But by the way, it's 54. LIV is 54 in Roman numerals, in case you guys were wondering that. But
What?
it's 54. And the reason why the 54 is on there, by the way, there is a bonus, and I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million. There's a bonus for anyone who shoots a 54 in competition. By the way, because that would be the lowest score ever. Yeah, well, that'd be 18 under. So yeah, that'd be pretty good. Anyway, the Live Golf Tour was at the Pumpkin Ridge Golf Club near Portland. Actually, it's North Plains, Oregon, in case anybody wants to know. This past weekend. The Best Lamb Sports Show was in attendance, by the way. AJ and I were both there. Brandon Grace was the winner of the event, shooting a final round 65. 765 to win by 2 shots over Carlos Ortiz. 4 shots ahead of Patrick Reed and Dustin Johnson. Grace won $4 million for his win, and another just shy of $400,000 for his Singer Golf Club team finishing second. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful day on Saturday. It was the only thing missing from the golf experience, in my opinion, was championship caliber golf. There was 6 or 8 guys playing championship caliber golf, and then there was everyone else. And I watched a lot of it, and I go, I can do what you're doing, at least sometimes. It doesn't seem very good. The quality wasn't great. Not everyone was hitting great golf shots, and that's not going to happen in every golf tour anyway, but it just was missing a little more competition where at any moment any of these guys could make a run. It didn't feel like that. There were like 6 guys with a chance to win, and that was it. Which goes along with the rankings, basically, of the guys that are in there.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
His career earnings
Brandon Grace
are $15 million
from the PGA Tour or total now?
Total, including this one.
Okay.
The most money he's ever made in a year was 2015-16 when he made $2.8 million in 18 tournaments.
In 18 tournaments.
This year, homeboy sitting on a cool $4 million
for one tournament.
For one tournament.
I don't even know what he did last one too. I think he played in the last one, but I'm not sure.
He's played in 8 tournaments this year. He's made 4.4.
Well, there you go.
So
he's all from this tournament.
All from this tournament. Last year he made 2.2 in 27 tournaments.
Oh, good God! So he's making a lot more for playing a lot less.
And the PGA Tour wonders why their guys might go, okay, I'm not going to grind through it.
And that's what all of these guys were saying when they left: is that you number one, you put us through this rigorous schedule that it's hard to keep up. I don't want to be away from my family for 40 out of 52 weeks a year playing golf.
Yeah.
And you make us play in all these events. We got to have an excuse if we don't. You won't let us play in these other events that we'd like to go play in that make more money because they aren't sanctioned or whatever.
Yeah.
And now they got a chance to play in a minimum of 8 events, right? They have to play in the 8. But if that's all he makes this year, he made more than last year.
He's doing great.
And all he has to do is go tank the other 6 tournaments this year.
Exactly.
I mean, geez.
Yeah.
I mean, now that doesn't promote great golf. But if you just won $4 million, wouldn't you be enticed to go play hard again next week to try and win 4 more? I'm just saying.
See, that's where I think it's it's misled a little bit. People think like, oh, they're just doing it for the money. It's like, no, they're doing it for a lot of money. Do you think they're not going to try for a lot of money?
Right.
You're going to get good golf. You're going to get people golfing as hard as they can.
Right.
To make a ton of money.
And that's
what we deserve.
The same thing happens on the PGA Tour when a guy shoots 78 in the first round and he shoots an 80 in the second round. If he doesn't make the cut, which most of you wouldn't, but I mean if you're still in there after the cut, you're not. I mean, you're going to play golf hard, but you know in your head you're not going to win. And that's
probably true of the 20th place guy in the Live tournament.
Right.
Too, so.
Yeah, at some point in time, you're resigned to what you've got. But if the difference is 20th on the Live Tour is $150,000 or $200,000, and 20th place on the PGA Tour is $40,000, that's the difference. I mean, that's something to play for. So
that picture that just showed gave me like with the dude's golf bag just laying on its side on the ground.
I don't know.
Did you see that?
Hang on. We have to wait.
Yeah. All right. Let's wait for it to come around.
Yeah.
It's like he's chipping out of the sand,
right?
And his golf bag is just on its side on the ground.
So I
took
that picture. It's on the 12th hole, and it's about to come back up. after we see Ian Poulter in his
Poulter
awesome
his
plaid
fancy
pants.
pants.
Fancy pants. That's good.
Ian Fancy Pants Poulter.
And AJ, because AJ was with me.
Oh,
I know.
you put him in here?
I mean, it was better. He's better looking than me.
Oh, nobody want to see that.
And you already see me on here anyway, right? And there's
Live
Phil.
golf.
And there's Phil. I mean, we got up close and personal with Phil on 10.
Big time.
Yeah.
In the back of that cameraman's head.
Saved par with a chip. Got it close.
And the side of that cameraman's head.
That cameraman just came and sat down in front of me, and I was like, really, right here, dude? Come on, man. If only I had a little pass to get inside the rope.
I really thought this picture was sooner.
It's we just said it. There's like 12. This one.
There it is.
Yeah.
Look at his golf bag. The caddy's right there. Pick his bag up.
Hold on, by the way. That's not even his caddy. That's not even his bag.
Somebody pick his bag up.
They just laid it down. I don't know.
Who just set their bag down? These are expensive-ass bags.
He got tired of carrying. Did you see the size of that thing? I'd get tired of carrying it too.
Unacceptable.
I agree. I mean,
I would get
be
tired
a professional,
of
man.
Wait, who was the guy who didn't tip out very well a couple years ago? Got called out for it.
I don't remember.
I would say,
man, you're not getting nothing.
Carrying it too when people tip out like that.
I mean, right? Yeah, I see. You're gonna tip me 1%. You're gonna give me 1% of the winnings. I'm putting this down every hole.
I'm gonna need it. There's definitely gonna be some dirt inside. There's gonna be a handful of sand inside your pocket.
Clean your own damn bag. I don't know. It was fun. The fan zone experience was good. They had a miniature golf course, and they had a little chipping section. They had some simulators you could go to. It's all free with your admission. It was really a well-run thing, other than the quality of the golf. That's all. The only thing I could complain about. Everything else reminded me of every other golf tournament I've been to.
Was it kind of top heavy in terms of golf? Like, was there like a couple guys doing really well, and then everyone was just kind of?
Yeah, there were 6 guys at the top that really had a chance to win until Brandon Grace on the back 9 shoots. I don't know what he shot on the back 9. The back 9's a par 35. He shot like a 30 on the back. Yeah, he was on fire. So until that happened, there were 5 or 6 guys with a chance to win. But those were the good golfers. Those were the guys that you know by name for the most part. Patrick Reed and Dustin Johnson and even the Koepkas. We watched Bryson DeChambeau, and I watched him play. He's bulked up. He's the beef of the PGA Tour, or was. He comes to the par 3 12th, and AJ's sitting there and he goes, he's not going to hit the green. And I said, well, probably not, because he doesn't have any finesse whatsoever, right? And he did. He was short and left. He didn't even make it to that sand trap you just saw. He was short and left of the sand trap, and then played his chip shot that went past the hole. And then he was up there putting, and he looks so awkward putting because he leans his shoulders forward, and there's these gigantic arms hanging onto this little stick, and he pendulums it, but he looks so awkward putting. It's just, it's awful. If you ever watch, just Google it, Bryson DeChambeau putting. And it just looks painful. It does not look like a natural movement for him. Some guys look fluid. No, not him. But
like his favorite scene in any movies where Happy Gilbert gets the hole, and when he goes, "Oh, that was way easier. I'm just gonna try and do that every time."
Right? But then you see him tee off on 13, right behind. We just turn around and watch the tee for 13, and he just rips this ball. It sounds like a cannon going off. Boom! And
if he had any semblance of, I guess not semblance, because he clearly does. You would not make it this far if you couldn't putt even kinda, or you couldn't chip even kinda. He can definitely do them kinda, but probably not much better than you or me.
Well, the example I have is that the first hole there at Pumpkin Ridge is 630-yard par 5. Okay, 630 yards. Think about that for a minute. For us regular golfers, that's 3 really, really good shots, right? Yeah. To get on the green. It's straight. No, he hits the ball 370 off the tee, right?
Yeah.
And is left with a mid 200 shot that he can hit with an iron, right? And he shortens the game that he can. It's okay if he 3 putts because he's still gonna get par,
right?
And you're just like, this is ridiculous. He makes it so much easier on himself.
And that's why guys like Brooks Koepka are mad at him because they feel like he's circumventing the challenge that other people have to do by just being a badass.
Just it was interesting.
I actually really like Brooks Koepka, but he also kind of looks like a bit of a meathead too. So
and that little feud that they have, Koepka and
it has to be for TV
and DeChambeau. Well, I don't know because Bryson makes this putt, and as soon as he hit it on the 12th, as soon as he putts the putt, and the ball's rolling towards the hole, there were some guys standing up by the TV tower, and they yelled out, "Brooksy!" And when he reached into the cup and pulled that out, he gave them a glare like nobody's business. So I know he
Yeah.
was angry about it, but I'm like, it's still kind of funny.
I think
Anyway,
I think it's funny, but I feel like Brooks dislikes him more than
right.
than
Yeah,
Bryson
right.
dislikes Brooks.
You're right.
He's like, I don't understand why you don't like me, man. Brooks is like, I do all of this
I,
working out to get these biceps, and I still can't drive it as far as you.
I did, however, watch Bryson DeChambeau take time between 12 and 13 to sign this little boy's program and a golf ball for him. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what it's all about right there. That's the whole
I've
thing.
heard that he's a fantastic fan
Super
engagement
nice
person.
Yeah, he's super nice. So,
and it's funny because I've heard the opposite about.
There's a lot of guys on this tour that aren't well liked in terms of public perception. That are just kind of jerks to people. Patrick Reed is one of those guys.
It would have been cool if they all wore black, like the Villains tour. That'd have been so cool.
And now everybody's, perception, fan perception. Phil is still, he's got this following, but he still has this perception now of being.
Phil wore all black.
Yeah, I mean, he always wears all black on the last round. Anyway, he has this perception of being a bad guy, sort of now, because of things that he said and the gambling debts and. Blah,
I think
blah,
it started with that cheating thing that he did a couple years ago where he putted the ball, it was going away, it was rolling over the side, and he went and tapped it again and took a penalty.
Yeah.
I think that's when people were like, oh, you can't, like, I mean, it just people who got up on their high horse about it, like, oh, what the hell, that's disrespectful to the game and blah blah blah, and the spirit of the game. I love that phrase, the spirit of the game.
Spirit of the game.
It's okay,
we're gonna speed through the second half of the show. We've already wasted an hour, and we're at halfway, by the way.
Oh, that's the best part.
Right, well, we're gonna talk about some things. By the way, I have a trivia question. I didn't say it, so let's say it now.
Throw it out there.
Because the trivia question is important.
Is it the Boss Kitty trivia question today?
No. But the Boss Kitty's coming up. But let me go back because technically I do this for the trivia question.
Okay.
The trivia question, by the way, is the Stave and Stone. It's the Best Lamb Sports Show trivia question brought to you by Stave and Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. This is a Formula One question, which we got to go backwards for, but that's okay. Since its inaugural season in 1950, the Formula One has crowned a driver's champion for 72 seasons. How many times has the Formula One driver that won the British Grand Prix gone on to win that season's driver's championship?
Ooh.
Of the 72 seasons they've awarded a champion, how many times has the winner of the British Grand Prix gone on to win the driver's championship for that same year? There you go. It's easy. This is easy stuff. You just got to come up with a number. But let's go back to Boss Kitty. So the second half of the show, short as it is, brought to you by Boss Kitty Hand-Dyed Yarns. Be sure to tune in to BossKittyLive.com. Go on the BossKittyShop.com website, get your kitty glitter yarn. If you're looking for a gift, get them a Boss Kitty Shop virtual gift card and let them pick it out themselves. That's Boss Kitty Hand-Dyed Yarns. Yarn so boss, you'll knit your pants. So let's go to the second half of the show, which is actually like the last third, maybe. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we're gonna jet through a little bit of this. So, that looks too big. Let's make it smaller. There, how about that? So let's talk about and I get much bigger on this particular. I don't know how it's working. Anyway, whatever. Jody Allen, the de facto owner of the NFL Seattle Seahawks and NBA's Portland Trailblazers, said in a statement on Tuesday that the teams are not currently for sale, but eventually will be. Allen's been the trustee of her brother Paul's estate since he died in 2018. And she said, quote, "As we've stated before, neither of the teams is for sale, and there are no sales discussions happening," end quote. This all comes, by the way, after Nike founder Phil Knight offered to buy the Blazers, which I think would be a tremendous move. Just for the whole region, just as a good feeling, you know what I mean? But
I agree. I think that people would love.
Yeah.
People love Uncle Phil. No
They
one
do.
has a problem with Uncle Phil. Whether you have a problem with Nike and their labor practices in other countries, like that might be your biggest gripe, but Uncle Phil himself,
right.
No one has a problem with him. He's done nothing but do the right things as a human being.
Right.
Yeah, and he's been as a millionaire for the last however many years, which is impressive. Most millionaires screw up at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about Daniel Snyder in a little bit.
Here we go. That's our weekly Snyder check-in.
Woohoo!
But yeah, no, I think it'd be good if he could be good if he owned the team. Like I like Jody Allen. I would love to keep it in the Allen family, but if she's not going to be a big hand in it and be a passive hand, then just get rid of it and let somebody else run it.
And that's what she's been so far. And I don't think she really has the desire to run day-to-day things, which I think that Paul Allen kind of did, not necessarily day-to-day exactly, but he was involved.
Paul Allen, I think, would have fired Olshey
Oh,
2-3 years ago.
oh yeah.
But Jody Allen didn't think. I don't think if Olshey didn't have some big serious backlash over his treatment of people and things like that, I don't think he would have been fired.
Yeah.
I think Jody Allen would have just been like, it's fine, whatever, just let him go.
I think
But Paul Allen, I think, would have fired him 3 or 4 years ago when results were starting to kind of teeter off.
Right. Well, there's Uncle Phil, by the way.
There he is.
Yeah. Right. Phil's a hero in Oregon, and you know what?
He's old though, man.
You can't. I know, but I mean, you can't. Everybody at the University of Oregon loves him. He went to Stanford. Everybody at Stanford loves him.
Everybody at Stanford loves him.
He's you know what I mean? He is such a well-known and respected figure in sports in general.
Right.
And he gives money to everything. And you know what I mean? When you've got that much money, I guess it's easy, but
he's been one of those really good kind of beacons.
Yeah.
Like he gives out, the Night Cancer Institute.
Yep.
He's doing the or University of Oregon just bought the Concordia campus in North Portland, and they're turning it into a whole childhood development research kind of thing. And
Nice.
it's a combination of him and Steve Ballmer are funding that entire project. He's done there's a couple of science things down on campus that are named after him that he's donated, and he donates all of it. He's like, whatever this building costs and the materials cost, I'll pay for it. Do it.
I don't think he'd be the hands-on owner either, but I think he'd be a great owner in terms of
I think he'd be more hands-on than Jody.
Well,
maybe less than Paul.
Just in terms of positive publicity and a respected figure. Nobody knows Jody Allen really, other than it was Paul Allen's.
I didn't even really know what she looked like for
a
while.
Yeah, that's anyway. So let's move along. So the other thing we're going to talk about here, by the way, is Baker Mayfield. Just got traded by the Cleveland Browns to the Carolina Panthers on Wednesday. The Browns will be paying $10.5 million of Mayfield's salary for this season. Carolina is going to be paying the other $4.85. Cleveland will get a conditional 2024 draft pick from the Panthers. That's either 4th or 5th rounder, depending upon how much playing time. He's got to play in 70% of the snaps this year to get a 4th rounder,
right?
Which isn't out of the question because his competition, by the way, is mostly this man, Sam Darnold. And if Sam Darnold is the number 3 overall pick in 2018, Baker Mayfield's the number 1 overall pick in 2018. So they've competed before for stuff. But Sam Darnold is not an NFL starting quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. You can call him that if you want, but he's a backup at best. And
at best.
And the Carolina Panthers just drafted this guy, Matt Corral from Ole Miss. So I don't know how good he is. I really don't. I got to be honest. I don't think that this was a quarterback-heavy draft, clearly, because we didn't only had, 3 in the first round or 2 in the first round. But I'm not sure how good he is. I don't know how good a pro he'll be, but I feel like he's going to be holding the clipboard this year no matter who's the starter. And I think Baker Mayfield has a great chance to be a starter and help that team. Can he help Carolina get to the playoffs is the question.
Yeah, that's interesting. Before I mention that, I want to say here's a couple people who make more money at the quarterback position than Baker Mayfield. Mason Rudolph, C.J. Beathard, Kellen Mond.
Kellen Mond.
Matt Corral, Kyle Trask.
Matt Corral makes more.
Drew Lock, Tyrod Taylor, Jordan Love.
Punctured lung Tyrod Taylor?
All of these guys make more money than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield slots in at the 27th highest paid quarterback. Just notching out Tyler Heineke by a cool $100,000.
Mayfield also agreed to let I don't know what's the term, to forego his last year of his contract. It would have been $18 million. He just said, nah, it's fine. He wanted out, and he got out, which is great because I didn't think they were going to do that.
I don't think he wanted out, but when they decided they were going to bring in Deshaun, he was like, fine, you got your quarterback, get rid of me.
Right.
And then they were jerks.
Right. But they did the right thing.
Play the market while the market was hot.
They did the right thing and got for him. Yeah, they got nothing.
Well, he came out on top. He went to a team that's got some upside talent. He's probably going to be the starter. And instead, they are stuck with $5 million that they got to pay and a 5th round throwaway pick.
I mean,
like they got nothing for
his stats from last year are not as bad as you would think. 60.5% completion percentage, 3,000 yards. Okay, 17 touchdowns and 13 interceptions is not as bad. It's not great, but it's not as bad as it felt
serviceable.
Like. Yeah. His overall rating was an 83.1, but his career is only 87.8. So it wasn't that bad a season in terms of how bad seasons could be.
Some injury issues,
Right.
which is what I'll the knock against him, right?
Yeah,
he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah, but I feel like he's definitely going to be the starter in Carolina, and
it seems that way.
Whether they can be good enough to make playoffs or compete in the NFC South is a whole nother thing, because you're also dealing with Tampa and New Orleans, and
if you believe in Jameis, I mean that. So you have Tom Brady, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, and Baker Mayfield, and that's if Marcus starts. They say he's going to start, but I'm not sold that it's not going to be Desmond Ridder or whoever their backup is. Desmond Ridder, not Malik Willis. Yeah,
I think that will depend on how well Desmond Ridder does in the fall, just in the camp. But I don't know.
But they've already come out and said that Marcus will be the starter going into the season. But I just don't know if I believe that.
Yeah, we'll find out.
I mean, you might as well. You're paying this guy more than you're paying Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield makes, so go ahead and let him run the team.
And we'll see how much playing time he gets in the preseason games, if any. Yeah. So,
but good on Baker. I think that this situation is decent for him. It's not a great team. I think the Seahawks would have been a much better situation for him.
But he has a chance right now to reestablish himself as a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL, and then get moved to somewhere else.
Just do 1 year here.
Stepping stone.
Make it a competitive team. Yeah. You're probably not going to win the division, but make sure you're competing for a second in your division, 8, 9, 10 wins at least.
Right.
And then somebody will give you a chance.
Right. Absolutely.
Somebody will bring you along, whether it be the Texans, trying to replace Deshaun. Oh my gosh, what a weird turn of events that would be.
Right.
He goes to the Texans, or whether it be Seattle, who's trying to play. I mean, they're going to draft a quarterback next year. I think they're sticking with Drew Lock. Do you think that Seattle didn't offer anything for him? Because they took a fifth and paying $5 million.
Right.
Do you think Seattle didn't offer anything? They were just like, we'll give you a seventh and some sodas.
I mean, some free hot dog.
free hot dogs at your next event.
We'll give you season tickets to the Seahawks.
Limit 2 per coupon.
I don't know. I don't know, man. These are good.
They had to not.
These are redeemable at the pilot station for 2 free hot dogs.
Did I ever? Real quick side segue. Did I ever tell you about my friend who had his father owned the Firehouse subs?
Oh.
And he would give out free Firehouse subs, like coupons, because his dad had them, and he'd just print them off and he'd just give them out. And so I'd be playing like beer pong or something with him, and if you won a game, even if he wasn't playing against you, he'd just walk over and hand out, hey, have a couple Firehouse subs.
Free sub. Here you go.
So anytime I hear about coupons, I always think about that guy just handing out free Firehouse subs coupons. I think at one point I had like 7 of them. I was like, I'm gonna eat like a king today.
Did you use them all though? That's the question.
I did use them all. Just you couldn't use them all at once. It was limit 1 per person per day.
Don't want to look. You got to go to a whole different Firehouse subs for that.
It's a whole another one.
Right.
Yep.
Circle around all of them.
There I was driving around Knoxville looking for Firehouse subs.
Oh my gosh! All right, so let's move. I don't know what do we got. What do we got time for? What time is it? So we got a little bit of time, but not a crap ton. Quickly, let's go over quickly. Timbers are on a 4-game unbeaten streak. After coming back from 2 goals down to tie Nashville SC on Sunday, Portland beat the Houston Dynamo last Wednesday 2-1. Portland now has 23 points, just 1 point behind Vancouver and Minnesota United, who are tied for the last playoff spot. So they're right there. It looked awful for the first part of the season, but this is classic Portland Timbers, is to be crappy for the first 10 games and then start to play better. You know what I mean? Or something like that. But they all of a sudden get better in the second half of the season. I don't know why that is, but it is. Yeah, we'll continue to monitor nonetheless. But I mean, does anybody really care about the Timbers right now? I mean, because they're out of the playoffs. As soon as they make the playoff thing, then everybody will be like, oh yeah. Let's talk about the USFL. USFL Championship in Birmingham. No, it wasn't. It was at Canton, Ohio, by the way.
I think that was a really cool thing to do.
I agree.
I think that's a really cool place to do it. I think that the NFL should do more games in Canton every year.
Well,
more than just the one game. Yeah.
Their issue is the stadium's not big enough.
I don't.
And I know. I mean, but they could make it bigger.
We don't care.
You own the damn stadium. Make it bigger.
Literally have the NFL on your back. You hold their most famous players' busts in your building.
Right. It's right there. Anyway, Birmingham Stallions won the inaugural USFL Championship on Sunday with a 33-30 victory over the Philadelphia Stars. The Stars took a 23-20 lead early in the fourth quarter, but former Arizona Wildcat Scooby Wright Intercepted KJ Costello, returned it 46 yards for a score and made it 33-23.
Wait, did Scooby Wright play at Arizona?
Arizona, yeah.
Dang, I remember him.
Yeah, Scooby Wright, Arizona.
It just kind
Right?
of blew my mind.
From
just now. I was
4
like,
years
oh,
ago? You remember him?
Yeah, from 4 or 5 years ago. I
Yeah.
remember him tearing up. I
Yeah.
mean, being a problem for Oregon.
Yeah, he was, definitely. USFL and Fox Sports both calling the season a triumph. Literally, quotes on their webpage. It says the first inaugural season was a triumph. And I'm like, I've seen the attendance. I'm looking at some of it right there on that picture. Triumph is a strong word, but I mean.
So I think that their viewing numbers are actually not bad.
Pretty good.
Like, it's not
well,
crazy, but they're averaging, what did it say? They're averaging like close to like 715,000 viewers per game.
So that's the thing, is that you're talking about summer football, and people will watch it because they're starved for that in between time. So I get that. I mean,
I peeked on a couple of them.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it, and I realized
I didn't get that into it though.
I watched an extra point sail into the end zone stands when there was nobody in there, and I'm like, "There's nobody
around a bunch of empty seats."
So who is making the applause sound? By the way,
it's piped in just like it was during the pandemic. Everyone installed those speakers. No, but they're actually there.
No, but
don't sell people the wrong way. That's actually happening. That's just mom in the other. By herself, she can throw her voice and
she's
throw
pretty
her
good.
claps and sound like 30 people.
Pretty talented. Anyway, again, the USFL website is crap, so they need to fix that first before I get involved in the USFL, and then you can't try and find pictures of USFL. Try and find a picture, just anything to put on here. They're terrible. I've got, hold on. Wait.
Whoa. They're running shoestring budget.
I'm way back here. I get it. What happened here? We went all the way back to Baker.
Yep. Hey, look at Darnold Corral.
We got to go through it.
No one cares.
So there's the one.
There it is.
So there's the last one. I had 3 pictures. I literally could find 3 pictures of the USFL that were suitable or usable that were
of the championship game.
Of the championship game.
Oh, okay. Not of all games. Just
no,
of the championship game.
But of every game. If you go on their website not on their website, but just go online and Google it and try and find pictures that are usable for what we're doing. There aren't any. Where are all the pictures? There's not a cameraman at this game taking pictures? I don't understand. The WNBA is the same way. Go onto the WNBA, go type in a score from last night's game. New York Liberty, whatever, Chicago Sky, this. You won't find any pictures. There's like 3 pictures on there.
What you're saying.
What is going on?
It's a garbage website and a cut rate website, cut rate league.
It really is. It really is. But I mean,
so it's saying that the championship game drew 1.5 million viewers on Fox.
Maybe.
And that's in line. The PGA Tour draws about 1.9.
Yeah.
NASCAR draws about 1.9. Wimbledon drew about 1.5. And MLB Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN is about 1.2.
It was July 3rd. Everybody was off. So I mean.
So it's in line viewership wise with what I'm going to call subpar sports.
If the
NFL just needs to take it over and make it a true developmental league.
Yeah, probably.
Make it that step. You don't have to go to college. You can go straight to the USFL, the NFL G League, and play 2-3 years through that, and then you can make your next step. Or maybe it's just 1 year, 2 years. I really don't care, but you can do that, or you can go to college. But if they took it over, they could upgrade its quality. They could fix that website issue you're working on.
I mean,
those guys know HTML.
Speaking of IT guys, right?
Speaking of IT guys, there's a couple dudes over at Fox right now that can fix our problem.
There's an ad somewhere running for an IT. I know there is. So let's talk about the WNBA real quick. And Sabrina Ionescu and the New York Liberty are now 9-13 on the season after beating Las Vegas Aces on the road on Wednesday night, 116-107. Ionescu had 31 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, and hit 7 threes to lead New York in this one. It was the WNBA's first ever 30-point triple-double. So she's breaking records. Well, that wasn't really a record because there was none. So, I mean, she's setting a record, I guess. That's not breaking one. I mean, it seems like a big deal. She also tied Candace Parker's WNBA triple-double record at 3. So this didn't happen before. There hasn't been a player like that before, really. If Candace Parker, who played for a long time in the WNBA, only had 3 in her career, and Sabrina has 3 in, a season and a quarter? Because she didn't play much. I mean, not even that much. But anyway.
The question is like I want to celebrate these what we're called victories. I want
Yeah.
to celebrate these wins.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
Nope.
like are we paying them? Are we paying Sabrina Ionescu what a top tier guard in the NBA makes?
I don't know. I
Because
don't know what her salary is.
that's what the argument is why are they not making as much as the NBA counterparts? And it's
Mm.
because, well, you got 3 triple doubles and Russell Westbrook averaged them for 2 years
For
on
82.
subpar teams.
Yeah, 82 games a season.
Yeah, like it's very impressive. It's super. I mean, doing something that no one else has done is always a really neat thing. But the comparison is there. It's sitting there. And the problem is that I think that's what you have to get away from. You have to take the WNBA away from the NBA and really let it breathe on its own. But you can't do it when you're sharing stadiums, when you're sharing, cities and things like that. I just don't think it'll ever work.
Then it'd be
not to that extent.
Then it'd be just the W.
Then it'd be just a dub.
If you take the
Hey,
NBA
what
out.
do you do now? I'm watching the dub tonight.
Yeah, right. We should probably make that a thing. Hashtag the dub. So New York lost a tough one to Phoenix last night. They're 84-81 on the road. Ionescu had 22 points, 10 rebounds in a game where Phoenix never trailed. But it was, she's been good. She's been really good, and her play has been good. Her field goal percentage, she takes a lot of shots, but she's a good player.
She takes a lot of shots.
She takes a lot of shots. But she is the star on that team, so I mean she's going to be a future star in the WNBA. So it's not a thing. Chicago Sky are your Eastern Conference leaders at 16-6 after beating the Indiana Fever last night, 93-84. The Aces are still the Las Vegas Aces are still your Western Conference leaders, 15-7, despite being 5-5 in their last 10 games. They were 10-2, and now they're 15-7. So
it's not great.
They've cooled off a lot. So there's that.
Hit the hard part of the schedule.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens. Crap happens. What are you gonna do? We were going to talk about MLB. I don't know if you want to talk about that. Let's talk about one more thing. Let's just skip over MLB. We'll talk about baseball next week when it's probably All-Star game time.
Ladies and gentlemen, someone threw a ball, someone hit a ball.
The starters were announced today, I think. So we'll talk about that next week when it actually happens.
Someone caught a ball. That's what I was missing. I said someone threw a ball, someone hit a ball. And I couldn't think of the third one.
It's a simple game. You throw the ball. Anyway, let's talk about Daniel Snyder. I have a question about Daniel Snyder. Seen here with his supermodel wife, Tanya.
Sure.
I don't know what she was a model for, but she's also co-CEO and co-owner of the Redskins. Here's my question. And she apparently likes burgundy leather. So that's all I know about her.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? I have that same suit. If the U.S. House of Representatives, by the way, was investigating your organization, I'm talking to you, if they were investigating your organization and asked you to testify, what kinds of things would keep you from actually going there? And first of all, it's in D.C. This is where you're from. This is where your team is. What would keep you from going and testifying?
My constitutional right to not incriminate myself.
Okay. That's absolutely what's going on right here, right? I mean,
I plead the fifth.
That absolutely has to be right. Because other than that, I mean, unless your mother died or your wife died or your daughter died or, I mean, whatever.
Just turn it down is
right.
It's baffling.
So
it's an indictment in and of itself.
And here's the thing is that his attorney also said, well, we didn't turn it down. We gave them a list of times when he could do it by video. Right? Days that he'd be available to do it by video. No, not coming in person.
Dude, you live in the city.
I ain't coming in person. Well, she also said that they said no to that, and they were offering a counter days. The U.S. House of Representatives, the committee was offering counter, these are the days we could do it, or we would like you to do it. And it conflicted with our travel schedule, his and hers, the attorney. I'm like, what travel schedule do you have as a billionaire owner that can't be stopped? You can't just say, no, I'm not going. I have to go to this.
I'll start the GoFundMe for the helicopter that it takes to get Dan Snyder from his house to the U.S. House of Representatives to talk.
And I'm willing to pay for the Uber from the airport to the frickin' Capitol.
Look at that. We're already making progress. Dan, you're getting to work today.
We can help you. I'll pitch in, man. I know you're strapped for cash, but
it's just his attorney has to be so scared of this man speaking. Just talking, because talking is going to get him in trouble.
So I know and we're going to talk about this more on another show, but I know what's going to happen with this. The truth is going to come out at some point. I'm hoping that all of the things that he's done wrong, or all of the program, because he's tried to throw misdirection and shade on other people that worked for him, and and say, oh, well, it's all their fault or it's all this and that. I think Roger Goodell's in the bottom of this too, because I think him and Dan Snyder are friends, and I think that he's involved somehow and has covered up
I think
something.
that the purpose of the commissioner is to protect the owner's investments and the sanctity of the league kind of at the same time. And I
Right.
think that he's been
At,
leaning ownership wise versus league wise.
at the expense of the image of the league
Right.
is what you're doing now.
He's willing to say, oh, 43,000 emails were released, but John Gruden though,
Right.
here's an enemy, because they know
There's-
people aren't going to read every email. They know that the public is only going to see a headline and kind of go with that.
But he's
And
involved.
that's enough.
He's involved in that too.
In all of that, that's what all this is about.
The Gruden thing, the mistreatment of the employees
Mistreatment
and
of employees, yep.
he's involved of all of that.
He's involved in like 20, 30 different unique scenarios that he has to answer for. That somehow he's been allowed to not. If Roger Goodell was smart, he would force him to make a decision. Say, you're either going to talk or you're going to leave.
And if you're convinced that Deshaun Watson needs a year suspension for the things that he's done and settled out of court because of his conduct, this guy, right, is probably facing the guillotine. This guy here needs to be out, just completely out of football and never be back. But I don't know if that's going to happen either. So
I think that in 5 years, Dan Snyder will no longer own or be a part of the Washington Redskins. I don't think it'll be fast enough. I think it'll still be a year or 2 or 3 down the road.
Linger.
But it's going to happen. Where I differ from you, though, is you believed that Roger Goodell would pay also.
He'll pay.
I don't think it's going to. I think he will leave, and then you'll get maybe in a year or two, and then some stuff will start leaking out like that. But he won't ever really incur a punishment for it.
My point is it will be the end of him being commissioner, whether it's by resigning or being, ousted one way or another.
Well, yeah,
he will be done.
He'll make the decision to resign because he'll kind of see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
I think that Roger Goodell's a very smart guy. I think that especially during the pandemic, he did a lot of very good things and made a lot of good decisions and said the right stuff. But the handling of the Dan Snyder stuff, it could be the end of him. He still has a chance to get out in front of it,
right?
As long as he hasn't really taken part in the cover-up. So
taken part in the cover-up.
The cover-up. We're talking conspiracy theories all day.
It's what we do best.
Snydergate.
I think he's behind January 6th too. Anyway,
we didn't even get into Flexigate.
No,
the Flexi floor issue in Formula One.
No, there's so many.
or Grinergate.
Grinergate, yeah.
Grinergate.
There's so many things going on that we could talk about, and we don't have time. I just don't have time to talk.
We're gonna start a 3-hour long show format at some point. So buckle in.
Shady Sports. That's going to be
Sports.
It's going to be our show.
The whole topic.
Welcome to Shady Sports. It's going to have that music like, X-Files music playing.
Investigative music.
Which
I think is it's mysterious meets jazz.
Is that you need to go when I go to bed tonight, I'm going to actually ask Alexa to play mysterious jazz. And see what happens, and see, because she's gonna play something, and I just don't know what it's gonna be. I'm right. It's gonna be exciting.
Or just say like sci-fi music. Sci-fi.
She'll have it. She's got everything.
Play sci-fi.
Oh my gosh! All right, so
Alexa just started talking to me.
Right?
I said it in the room. Oh no.
Yeah, you're gonna have to change your name. So
well, that was a disaster.
I mean, it happened.
I said it out loud, and she was just like, "Yep, here we go."
Yep, she said, "I'm on."
I forgot there's one of those.
I'm always on.
Forgot there's one of those bad girls in here.
She's always listening. The Best Lamm Sports Show trivia question brought to you by Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. I don't have my ad copy in front of me. Isn't that ridiculous? Yeah, I know, right? So go visit them. The winery at the Vineyard, 3827 Fletcher Drive. I should know all this by heart anyway. Open 7 days a week from 12 to 6, indoor and patio dining. I don't know if they changed the hours or anything. But go on the website. You'll be able to find out. Downtown Tasting Room is open from 12 to 6. That's at 210 Oak Street. You can call them, 541-946-3750. That's 541-WINE-750. You can email them, info@stavenstone.com, or go on the stavenstone.com website, and you can find ways to reserve a table and buy wine on there, too. And I think they have local delivery, by the way, if you're interested. If you're too drunk to get out to the winery. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying. And then
just be cool people.
I mean, yeah, just... But what else would you have? Where else would you have alcohol delivery for? By the way,
I feel like "be cool" is a really great phrase. Like, let's just be cool.
just be
All
cool
right?
about it. Yep,
just be
just
cool.
be cool.
Whatever you're thinking about doing,
Yep,
just be cool.
relax. Just everybody. Stave & Stone, the winner of the 2021 Best Local Winery in the Best of the Gorge Awards. So the trivia question, by the way, was since its inaugural season in 1950, Formula One has crowned a driver's champion for 72 seasons. How many times has the Formula One driver that won the British Grand Prix gone on to win that season's driver's champion? And this year it was Carlos Sainz. And so
This year was Carlos Sainz.
He's in what, fourth place in the standings? He's a long ways out, but I mean, there's a chance. So
well, and last year was Lewis Hamilton, but he lost the driver's championship. So
how many times has it happened?
Lewis has 7 titles.
Lewis has 8, or is it 7?
No, I think last year would have been his 8th.
Maybe he might be tied at 7. I can't remember.
Crap. So I'm kind of off here. I'm gonna go with 11 times. The big one.
Yeah, he's 7, by the way.
No, not him winning titles.
No, I know, but I'm just telling you.
Oh, it is 7.
It is 7.
Yeah, he won 7 last year. Was going to be number 8, which would have broken the record.
Right.
But
so how many times of the 72 seasons has the winner of the British Grand Prix gone on to win the drivers' championship?
11.
It is 31.
Holy crap!
You're right. That's what drew my attention to this question.
That's pretty significant.
31. That's almost half. That means Carlos Sainz has roughly a 47% chance to win the driver's championship.
He's got a way to go.
I know, right? He's got to get on it. The list of people that have won in the past and gone on to win the championship that same season: Lewis Hamilton, obviously, Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell. It's a variable who's who of Formula One drivers.
Those cars were so much smaller.
Jack Brabham, Niki Lauda, Alain Prost, Alberto Ascari twice.
Ascari, yep.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so there you go. There's your answer. 31 times out of the 72. I thought that was a gigantic number.
That's higher than I would have. I could have in my head convinced myself to go up to like 18, 19, maybe 20.
Right.
And been like, oh, that's a lot of them though. Like, I don't know. It's just one race and there's a lot of races, blah, blah, blah. But I have to remember that, like, back in the day, there was only, 15 races a season, 16 races a season.
Right.
And then it bumped up and kept going up and things like that. So it was a strong chance that if you were doing well, you would have been fine.
Sure.
Like you would have won that. And then you just a couple races later, you would have won it all.
Right.
Real quickly.
Yeah.
Can you click on that Stave & Stone picture?
Yeah, I can I can absolutely. I can absolutely. This one here. Let's see. Hold on.
With all the people kind of sitting there.
That one.
The guy dead in the middle.
Dead in the middle with the hat.
The guy, no, not without the hat.
The one with his back turned.
Do you think he didn't know that a picture was about to be taken?
Oh no,
do you think that he specifically went, "I'm not doing this"?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. There's another guy on the far right.
I see him, but he looks like he's like doing something. Like he's picking
he
something
stood up,
or he didn't know what was going on right now. But that guy looks either deliberately like, nah.
His wife probably whacked him on the shoulder afterwards and said, "Why didn't you turn around?"
I'm gonna guess wife's on the right, mom's on the left, and both of them whacked him for that.
That looks like just one family. You can see by all the blonde that's around that table. Is it not? I mean, that's what I feel like. It's one family.
I've been looking at this picture now for a while when you pull it up.
Right?
And every time I see it, I go, what's that guy doing? What is he looking at? Or is he looking at the dude who's standing up? And going, what are you doing?
I will tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call Jill at some point in time. And I will ask her and see if she knows more about this picture.
Let's get some answers.
Because we may not know. I mean,
at the bottom of this.
I mean, I'm going to put that X-Files music on right now. Mysterious Jazz. And anyway, mysterious jazz. I mean, what else?
It's just you can search for mysterious tones. I think would be a good one.
I'm going to come up with something for next week, by the way. So every time we have a conspiracy,
give me a new intro music that's mysterious jazz.
Whenever we have a conspiracy theory segment, we're just going to play that music the whole time while we're talking about it.
I like that.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on that. But in the meantime, so. We have this. This is not mysterious in any way, shape, or form. We're on YouTube every week, by the way. We're on Twitter at Lamm Sports. We're on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show. You can email us, lammsports@gmail.com. I want to thank our sponsors, The Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty Yarn, Stave & Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. All of the sports broadcast, NBC, ABC, CBS, all those people, all the sports leagues. Thank everybody for providing us with the necessary stuff to do our show. See, and this one problem with that one is it ends. I had that one timed with the
I
original
made you
outro.
the short one, right?
Right, because I had it timed with the original outro, but I do more now. So this is the one I should play.
Casual with it.
This is the one I should play.
Yeah, this one's long.
What it used to sound like on the way out was a used car dealership, right? Telling you the VIN number and the right, saying as fast as I could. Blah, 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 blah. And I said no, I'm just gonna slow down.
That's a great point.
That's what I felt like. Anyway, so I'm going to play this music. Then we're going to thank ESPN, Fox Sports, NBC, CBS Sports, the NFL, NCAA. See, it sounds like it. NHL, NBA, MLS, Formula One, Live Golf, PGA, and of course, those sponsors we aforementioned. That's all I have for the day. You got anything on the way out?
Be good, be safe, be smart.
This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lonely Tree Media LLC. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.